Everyone in the room went silent. The sound of the slap was still hanging in the air like thunder after lightning. She stood there, shocked, her hand slowly rising to her cheek, eyes wide and wet. How dare you slap her like that? The slap that changed everything. The bass thundered through Club Nexus like a heartbeat, each pulse sending vibrations through the polished marble floors. Marcus Chin stood at the VIP section's railing, a glass of overpriced whiskey in his hand, surveying the crowd below with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never learned the meaning of consequence. At 32, Marcus had built his reputation on being untouchable. His family's real estate empire had cushioned him from every mistake, every burned bridge, every person he'd trampled on his way up. Tonight, dressed in a custom Italian suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, he felt invincible. He didn't notice her at first. The club was packed with Seoul's elite, tech moguls, entertainment executives, trust fund kids burning through their inheritances. Marcus had flown in from New York for a business deal, but business always took a back seat to pleasure. He drained his whiskey and signaled for another, his eyes scanning the dance floor with predatory interest. That's when he saw her, Isabella. Even across the strobing lights and writhing bodies, he recognized that silhouette, the curve of her neck, the way she moved. 3 years had passed since their catastrophic breakup, but some memories were carved too deep to fade. She was at the bar, her back to him, wearing a black dress that seemed to absorb the club's neon glow. Her dark hair cascaded down her back in waves he remembered running his fingers through, back when she'd been his, and he'd taken that for granted. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Anger, maybe, or wounded pride. Isabella had been the one who got away. No, not got away. The one who'd left. The one who'd had the audacity to walk out on Marcus Chun, to tell him he was selfish and cruel and that she deserved better. The alcohol made the decision for him. He set down his glass and made his way down the stairs, pushing through the crowd with the entitlement of someone who'd never been told no. His heart pounded, though whether from anger or something else, he couldn't say. As he got closer, he saw she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her, tall and lean, with sharp features and an air of quiet authority that made Marcus's hackles rise. The man wore a simple black shirt and slacks, understated compared to the peacocking happening throughout the club, but something about him commanded attention. Marcus didn't care. He'd come this far. "Isabella," he said, his voice cutting through the music as he approached. She turned, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Her face. God, her face was exactly as he remembered. Those dark eyes that had once looked at him with love, that full mouth that had smiled at his jokes, the delicate features that haunted him more than he'd ever admit. But something was different. There was a hardness there now, a steel in her gaze that hadn't existed before. Marcus. Her voice was flat, emotionless. She didn't seem surprised. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" He laughed, a bitter sound. 3 years, Isabella. 3 years without a word. And that's all you have to say to me? We have nothing to discuss. She turned back to Barr, dismissing him. That dismissal, that casual, complete dismissal, ignited something ugly in Marcus's chest. The man beside Isabella shifted slightly, his attention now fully on Marcus, but Marcus was too far gone to notice the warning in that movement. Nothing to discuss? Marcus grabbed her arm, spinning her back around. "You walked out on me. You humiliated me. You made me look like a fool in front of everyone we knew." Isabella yanked her arm free, her eyes flashing. "I left because you were toxic, Marcus. Because you cared more about your ego than you ever cared about me. I made the right choice." Right choice. The words came out as a snarl. "Look at you, slumming it in some Seoul nightclub. What happened to all those big dreams? What happened to—" "Step back." The man beside Isabella spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but carrying an edge that would have warned a wiser man. Marcus finally looked at him, really looked at him. The man was younger than Marcus had initially thought, maybe early 30s, with the kind of face that could have belonged to a model or an actor. But there was something in his eyes, a dangerous calm that Marcus, in his alcohol-fueled rage, mistook for weakness. "This doesn't concern you," Marcus said, turning back to Isabella. We're talking. No, Isabella said firmly. We're not. Marcus, you need to leave. Now. The music shifted, some bass-heavy K-pop track that made the floor shake. Marcus felt the eyes of nearby clubgoers on them, drawn by the confrontation. His face burned with humiliation. You always were a bitch, he spat, and before he could think, before he could stop himself, his hand shot out. The slap echoed impossibly loud, cutting through even the club's thundering music. Isabella's head snapped to the side, her hand flying to her reddening cheek. For a moment, nobody moved. The nearby dancers had stopped, creating a growing circle of silence in the chaos. Marcus's hand was still raised, his breath coming in short gasps. Reality began to seep through the alcohol haze. What had he just done? In public, in front of all these people, The man beside Isabella moved. It wasn't fast, exactly. There was no rush, no panic. But one moment he was standing beside Isabella, and the next his hand was locked around Marcus's wrist in a grip like iron. His other hand pressed against Marcus's chest, and suddenly Marcus found himself being guided backward, away from Isabella with inexorable force. You made a mistake, the man said softly, his accented English perfectly clear despite the music. His face remained calm, almost pleasant, but his eyes were black ice. Marcus tried to pull away, but the grip on his wrist didn't budge. Let go of me. Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea what I can? Jehun. Isabella's voice, strained but controlled. Don't. The man, Jehun, stopped moving but didn't release Marcus. He struck you. I know, but not here, not like this. Something passed between them in that moment. Some silent communication that Marcus couldn't interpret. Then Jehun released him, and Marcus stumbled backward, nearly falling. You should leave, Jehun said, still in that quiet voice. Leave so tonight, if possible. Marcus laughed, hysteria creeping into the sound. Are you threatening me? Do you have any idea who my family is? One phone call, and I'll have your life destroyed. Jehun is my husband, Isabella interrupted, and those 4 words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Husband. She was married. To this man. This nobody in a Seoul nightclub. Your husband. Marcus looked between them, seeing it now. The ring on her finger, simple and elegant. The protective way Jehun stood, the authority in his bearing. You married him? Isabella's hand still rested on her cheek. When she spoke, her voice was ice. I married a man who treats me with respect, who values me, who would never, ever lay a hand on me in anger. Each word was a knife. I married someone better than you in every possible way. Marcus felt his world tilting. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. Isabella was supposed to be struggling, supposed to regret leaving him, supposed to see what she'd given up. Security is coming, Jehun said, and indeed, several large men in black suits were pushing through the crowd. You will leave now. And Marcus, he leaned in slightly, and Marcus caught a glimpse of something in those eyes that made his blood run cold. If I ever see you again, if you ever come near my wife again, there will be consequences. Consequences your family's money cannot protect you from. The security guard arrived, taking Marcus by the arms. He didn't resist, couldn't resist. His mind was reeling. Try to process what had just happened as they escorted him toward the exit. He looked back once. Isabella and Jehun stood together at the bar, his arm around her shoulders, her head leaning against his chest. They looked like what they were, a couple, solid, real, everything Marcus had never given her. The night air hit him like a slap as security deposited him on the sidewalk outside. The club's door thumped shut behind him, cutting off the music, leaving him in Seoul's glittering night with nothing but his rage and his pride. Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands. His father would hear about this. His lawyers would hear about this. Nobody treated Marcus Chin this way and got away with it. He'd destroy them, both of them. He had no idea that he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. What Marcus couldn't know, was that the quiet man who'd gripped his wrist and spoken so softly was Kim Jehun, heir to the Baekho, the White Tiger clan, one of South Korea's most powerful criminal organizations. He didn't know that the simple businessman who'd married his ex-girlfriend commanded the loyalty of over 300 soldiers, controlled shipping ports across Asia, and had survived 2 assassination attempts before his 30th birthday. He didn't know that in the world Jehun inhabited, respect was currency and disrespect was paid for in blood. He didn't know that by slapping Isabella, he'd started a chain of events that would unravel his entire life. Marcus climbed into a taxi, gave the driver the name of his hotel, and began making calls. He was still making calls when the taxi pulled away from the curb, still plotting his revenge, still believing that money and family connections were armor enough. Behind him, Club Nexus continued its neon pulse, oblivious of the violence that had just been born within its walls. Part 2. The calm before. Isabella sat in the private bathroom off the VIP section, pressing a cold compress to her cheek. The initial shock had faded, replaced by a trembling anger that made her hands shake. 3 years. 3 years since she'd left New York, left Marcus, left behind a woman who thought love meant accepting cruelty. 3 years of building a new life, finding herself, falling in love with a man who saw her as an equal, not a possession. And Marcus had walked back into her life and marked her with violence in minutes. The bathroom door opened. Jehun entered, closing it softly behind him. His face was still calm, but Isabella knew him well enough now to see the fury simmering beneath that placid surface. "Let me see," he said gently, taking the compress from her hands. She let him examine her cheek. His touch was feather-light, professional. Jehun had seen violence before, dealt it, survived it, and he knew how to assess damage. "It'll bruise," he said quietly, "but nothing serious. I can have Dr. Park come to the house if... I'm fine." Isabella caught his hand, holding it against her face. "Jehun, I'm sorry. I never thought he'd be here. I never thought. You have nothing to apologize for." His voice was still soft, but there was steel underneath. "He put his hands on you. He struck you. In front of witnesses, in public, he struck my wife." Isabella heard the possessive emphasis on those last 2 words. In Jehun's world, such an act wasn't just assault. It was a declaration of war. "What will you do?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Jehun was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes distant. When they'd married 8 months ago, Isabella had known exactly what kind of man she was binding herself to. Jehun had been honest from the start about his family's business, about the violence and danger that came with his name. She'd chosen him anyway, chosen this life, because beneath the criminal exterior was a man of honor, a man who'd shown her what real love looked like. But she'd also learned that in Jehun's world, actions had consequences, severe consequences. "I'll handle it," he finally said. "Marcus Chun. His family owns Chun Properties, correct? Real estate development throughout East Asia." Isabella nodded. She'd known the Chens were wealthy, but it wasn't until she'd moved to Seoul that she'd realized just how far their empire extended. Marcus's father, David Chun, was a legitimate businessman, but his success had come from being willing to work in the gray areas where money and politics intersected. "His father has connections in Seoul," Jehun continued, more to himself than to her. "Government contracts, development deals. Some of our own holdings intersect with his." He paused. "This will be complicated." "Jehun." Isabella stood, facing him. "I don't want you starting a war over this. Marcus is a foolish, angry man, but he's not worth. You are worth everything." Jehun cupped her face with both hands, careful of her bruised cheek. "Everything, Isabella. You are my wife. An insult to you is an insult to me, to my family, to the Baekho. If I let this pass, if I show weakness, others will see it. They will think I can be challenged. Do you understand?" She did. In the legitimate world, you could brush off a slap, press charges, let the law handle it. But in Jehun's world, reputation was survival. Appear weak, and your enemies would circle like sharks scenting blood. "Just..." She searched for the right words. "Don't kill him. Please. Despite everything, I don't want his death on my conscience." Jehun smiled then, a real smile that softened his face. "My Bella Isabella. Still so kind, even to those who don't deserve it." He kissed her forehead. I promise you, Marcus will not die. But he will learn. He will learn that there are things money cannot buy, and mistakes money cannot fix. A knock at the door interrupted them. Boss! A gruff voice, speaking in Korean. We need to talk. Jehun switched to Korean, fluid and natural. Give us a moment, Sung-min. When he looked back at Isabella, his expression had already shifted. The tender husband replaced by something harder. I need to handle this. Will you be all right? I'll be fine. Go do what you need to do. He kissed her once more, soft and lingering, then opened the door. Sung-min waited outside, a mountain of a man with graying hair and scars that spoke of a violent past. He was Jehun's second in command, his most trusted enforcer, and one of the few people who'd known Jehun since childhood. As Isabella watched them walk away, heads bent in conversation, she felt a flutter of fear, not for herself, but for Marcus. He had no idea what he'd stumbled into. No idea that his impulsive violence had just made him an enemy of forces he couldn't begin to comprehend. She pulled out her phone, staring at the blank screen. Should she warn him? Send him a message telling him to leave Korea, to run as far and fast as he could? No, Marcus had made his choice. He'd put his hands on her, just like he'd done twice during their relationship, thinking his money and charm would let him get away with it again. This time, he'd learned differently. Isabella pocketed her phone and returned to the VIP section, where several of Jehun's men waited. They treated her with perfect courtesy, as they always did. The boss's wife commanded as much respect as the boss himself. She could still feel the ghost of Marcus's slap burning on her cheek, could still see the rage in his eyes, the entitlement that told him he had the right to strike her. Whatever happened next, Marcus had earned it. Part 3, Morning Comes. Marcus woke to his phone buzzing insistently. Sunlight streamed to the hotel room's floor-to-ceiling windows, stabbing into his eyes like knives. His head pounded with a vicious hangover. His mouth tasted like something had died in it. And for a moment, he couldn't remember why he felt like he'd been hit by a truck. Then memory flooded back. The club, Isabella, the slap. Fuck, he groaned, reaching for his phone. 17 missed calls. 8 from his father, 3 from his mother, 6 from his assistant, and 1 from an unknown number with a sole area code. Marcus sat up too fast, immediately regretting it as his stomach lurched. What time was it? He squinted at the clock. 11:47 a.m. He'd been supposed to meet with investors at 9. He dialed his father first. David Chin answered on the first ring. Where the hell are you? His father's voice was ice. I've been calling for hours. I'm at the hotel. I overslept. I'm sorry. I had too much to drink last night, and I don't care about your drinking. I care about the call I received from my lawyer at 6 this morning. Marcus, what the hell did you do? The pounding in Marcus's head intensified. What do you mean? I mean the call from Kim Jae-sung's office. I mean the fact that you apparently assaulted someone at a nightclub, in public, with witnesses. Marcus's mouth went dry. Who's Kim Jae-sung? A long silence, then dangerously quiet. You don't know who Kim Jae-sung is? No, Kim Jae-sung is the patriarch of the Kim family, one of the most powerful business families in South Korea. They own half the shipping in the port of Busan, have their fingers in construction, entertainment, politics. David's voice rose. They also have very well-documented connections to organized crime, though nothing that's ever stuck legally. And you, my idiot son, apparently assaulted his daughter-in-law, his son's wife, in front of half of Seoul's elite. The room seemed to tilt. I what? Isabella Torres. Now Isabella Kim. She married Kim Jehun 8 months ago. And you hit her. In public. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Isabella Kim. Kim Jehun. The quiet man at the bar. The one who'd grabbed his wrist. Who'd looked at him with those cold eyes. I didn't know, Marcus said weakly. I didn't know who she'd married. I just saw her, and we have history. We dated years ago, and when I saw her, You just what? Lost your mind? Decided to commit assault in front of witnesses. David's breathing was harsh over the line. Do you have any idea what you've done? Any idea at all? It was just a slap. It was just. There is no just with these people, Marcus. His father was shouting now, all control lost. The Kims aren't like our usual competitors. They don't settle things in boardrooms and courts. They settle things their own way, and that way tends to be permanent. Marcus's hands were shaking. You're overreacting. They're not going to actually do anything. This is the 21st century, not some gangster movie. I'll apologize, pay a fine, whatever needs to happen. You're not listening. David's voice dropped back to that dangerous quiet. I've already had 2 business partners back out of deals with me this morning. 2 more have postponed meetings. The word is out, Marcus. Everyone knows what you did, and everyone knows the Kims will respond. Nobody wants to be near us when that happens. So we'll weather it. We've dealt with bad publicity before. This isn't publicity. His father exploded again. This is survival. I've built this empire over 30 years, and you might have just destroyed it in one drunken moment. A long silence stretched between them. Marcus could hear his father's harsh breathing, could feel the weight of his disappointment even across the miles. What do I do? Marcus finally asked, hating how small his voice sounded. You get on a plane. Today, you fly back to New York, and you stay there. I'll handle the damage control here. Though I don't know if I can fix this. And Marcus, yes. If Kim Ji-hoon reaches out to you, you apologize. You grovel. You beg for forgiveness. And then you praise feeling merciful. The line went dead. Marcus sat on the edge of his hotel bed, phone in his shaking hands, trying to process. This couldn't be happening. It was a slap. One moment of anger, of hurt pride, of too much alcohol. It couldn't really bring down everything his family had built. Could it? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Chun, we need to talk. There's a car waiting downstairs. Come alone. K. Marcus stared at the message. Every instinct screamed at him to ignore it, to pack his bags and run to the airport like his father had said. But another part of him, the proud, stubborn part that had gotten him into this mess, bristled at the idea of running. Besides, what could they really do to him in broad daylight? This was Seoul, a modern city with laws and police. They couldn't just disappear him. This was probably just an attempt to intimidate him, to make him sweat. He'd go down. He'd meet with whoever K was. He'd apologize, make it clear he hadn't known who Isabella had married. And that would be the end of it. Marcus showered, quickly, wincing at his reflection in the mirror. He looked like hell, eyes bloodshot, skin pale, a growing shadow stubble on his jaw. He dressed in a clean suit, trying to recapture some of the confidence he'd felt the night before. As he rode the elevator down, his phone buzzed again. His mother, calling for the 4th time. He let it go to voicemail. He'd call her after this meeting, after he'd straightened everything out. The hotel lobby was bustling with activity. Tourists and business travelers flowing in and out. Marcus spotted the car immediately. A black Mercedes S-Class parked illegally in front of the entrance, its driver standing beside the rear door. The driver was young, maybe mid-20s, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. He had the build of someone who spent serious time in the gym, and his eyes tracked Marcus with professional attention. Mr. Chun, he said, his English barely accented. Please. Marcus hesitated. This was it. The moment he could still walk away, could run to the airport like his father had said, but his pride wouldn't let him. Where are we going? Marcus asked. Not far. Mr. Kim wishes to speak with you. Kim, that would be Ji-hoon, Isabella's new husband. Good. Marcus would apologize directly, man to man. That was the right thing to do anyway. He climbed into the back seat. The driver closed the door with a solid thunk, then got behind the wheel. As they pulled into Seoul's traffic, Marcus tried to ignore the small voice in his head, screaming that he was making a mistake. They drove for perhaps 20 minutes, leaving the gleaming downtown behind and heading into an older neighborhood. The buildings here were lower, more traditional, mixed commercial and residential. The Mercedes finally pulled up in front of what looked like a restaurant, a modest building with traditional Korean architecture, its windows dark. This way, please, the driver said, opening Marcus's door. Marcus followed him to the restaurant's entrance. A sign in Korean and English read, "Closed for private event." The driver opened the door, gesturing for Marcus to enter. Inside, the restaurant was dim, only a few lights on. Tables and chairs were pushed to the sides, and in the center of the main room, a single table had been set up. Two men sat there, waiting. Marcus recognized Jehun immediately, in the daylight filtering through the windows. Isabella's husband looked younger than Marcus had initially thought, with the kind of refined features that would have made him look soft if not for his eyes. Those eyes tracked Marcus with the same cold calculation as the night before. The other man was older, perhaps 50, with iron-gray hair and the kind of face that had seen everything. He wore an expensive suit that fit perfectly, and he radiated authority like heat from a furnace. "Mr. Chun," the older man said, gesturing to an empty chair across from them. "Please sit." Marcus remained standing. "I prefer to have this conversation standing. I came to apologize for what happened last night. I was drunk. I didn't know who Isabella had married, and I—" "Sit down." The words were soft but carried absolute command. Marcus found himself sitting before he consciously decided to do so. The older man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Kim Jae-sung. Kim Jehun is my eldest son, and Isabella, the woman you struck last night, is my daughter-in-law, a member of my family." Oh no, this wasn't just Jehun. This was the patriarch, the head of the entire family. Marcus's mouth went dry. "Mr. Kim, I sincerely apologize for my actions last night. I had too much to drink. I saw my ex-girlfriend, and I lost my temper. It was wrong. It was inexcusable, and I take full responsibility. Do you?" Jae-sung leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "Tell me, Mr. Chun, do you understand who we are?" My father told me your family is very powerful, very connected." "Connected?" Jae-sung smiled again. "A polite word. Let me be less polite. My family has controlled certain aspects of Korean business for 3 generations. We have interests that extend across Asia and into the Americas. We have friends in very high places, and we have associates who handle problems that cannot be solved through conventional means." Marcus felt sweat beginning to form on his forehead. "I understand." "I don't think you do." This from Jehun, speaking for the first time. His voice was still soft, still controlled, but there was an edge to it now. "Let me help you understand. When you struck my wife, you disrespected not just her, but me, my family, our entire organization. If I let such an insult pass unanswered, I look weak. And in my world, looking weak is the same as being dead. I said I'm sorry." Marcus heard the panic creeping into his voice. "What more do you want?" Jae-sung and Jehun exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some silent communication. "Your father's company," Jae-sung said, "Chin Properties, very successful. Developments across Southeast Asia, very impressive portfolio." He pulled out a tablet, swiping through screens. "Ah, yes, the Shanghai project, the Manila Tower, the Bangkok mixed-use complex. Very ambitious." Where was he going with this? Marcus waited, barely breathing. "It would be unfortunate," Jae-sung continued, "if problems arose with these projects. Supply chain issues, labor problems, permitting delays. You understand, in this part of the world, many things run on relationships, on trust. If word spread that Chin Properties could not be trusted, that they had dishonored an important family," he shrugged, "well, projects can become impossible very quickly." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "You're threatening my family's business?" "Threatening?" Jae-sung looked genuinely puzzled. "No, Mr. Chun. I'm simply explaining reality. You created a problem. Problems have consequences. I'm helping you understand what those consequences might be." "What do you want?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jehun leaned forward. "I want you to understand that you made a mistake, a serious mistake. I want you to understand that your money, your family's influence, none of that protects you here. You are in my city and my territory, and you attacked my wife. I'll pay. Whatever amount you want, I'll pay. I'll donate to charity in Isabella's name. I'll make a public apology. Whatever you want. We don't want your money, Ji-hoon said flatly. What we want is for you to learn. To really learn that actions have consequences. That there are people in this world who don't care about your last name or your bank account. Jae-sung stood, buttoning his suit jacket. You will stay in Seoul for 3 more days, Mr. Chun. You will not contact your father. You will not contact your lawyers. You will not leave your hotel room except when we summon you. And you will think very carefully about what you've done. You can't keep me here. This is kidnapping. Is it? Jae-sung smiled pleasantly. You came here to your own free will. No one is forcing you to stay. Feel free to leave right now. Get on a plane. Fly home to New York. He paused. Of course. If you do that, I cannot guarantee what might happen to your father's business interests. These things have a way of unraveling very quickly. Marcus felt trapped, helpless. What happens after 3 days? After 3 days, we will speak again, and we will discuss how you will make amends. Ji-hoon stood as well. Until then, think about what you've done. Think about Isabella, about the pain you caused her. Think about the consequences of believing you are above accountability. The driver appeared at Marcus's elbow, gently but firmly taking his arm. Time to go, Mr. Chun. Marcus let himself be led to the door. As he reached it, he looked back. Ji-hoon and his father were watching him, their faces unreadable. Why? Marcus asked. Why not just kill me? Get it over with? Isn't that what your type does? Ji-hoon's expression didn't change. Because Isabella asked me not to. She still has a kind heart, even for men who don't deserve it. So you get to live, Mr. Chun. But you will learn. By the time we're done, you will understand exactly how fortunate you are. The driver guided Marcus outside, back to the waiting Mercedes. As they pulled away from the restaurant, Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Do not try to leave Seoul. Do not call your father. We will be watching. 3 days, Mr. Chun. Use them wisely. K. Marcus stared at the message, then out the window at Seoul streaming past. 3 days. 3 days as a prisoner in one of Asia's most modern cities, held by threats and implications rather than chains. What had he gotten himself into? More importantly, how the hell was he going to get out? Part 4. The long 3 days. Day 1 passed in a blur of paranoia and force in action. Marcus stayed in his hotel room as instructed, pacing like a caged animal, his phone clutched in his hand. He drafted and deleted a dozen messages to his father, each time stopping himself at the last moment. They were watching. They'd said they were watching. But how? Were there cameras in his room? Men in the lobby? His imagination conjured watchers everywhere. The cleaning staff, the businessman reading a newspaper in the corner, the teenager on his phone. He ordered room service for lunch, barely touching the food. His hangover had faded but had been replaced by a gnawing anxiety that made eating nearly impossible. He tried to work, opening his laptop and attempting to focus on emails, but the words swam before his eyes. His phone rang. His father. Marcus stared at it, watching it buzz and ring, every instinct screaming at him to answer. But the text message had been clear. Do not call your father. He let it go to voicemail. An hour later, another call. Then a text. Marcus, where are you? Why aren't you answering? Your mother is worried sick. Marcus typed and deleted responses. I'm fine. I'm handling it. I'll call you soon. But he sent nothing. As the sun set over Seoul, painting his hotel room in shades of orange and red, Marcus stood at the window and looked out at the sprawling city. Somewhere out there, Isabella was living her new life, married to a gangster, protected by violence and money and power. How had it come to this? 3 years ago, she'd been his. She'd loved him, or at least he'd thought she had. He'd given her everything. Expensive dinners, designer clothes, trips to exotic locations. What more could she have wanted? But even as he thought it, he knew. He'd given her things, but he'd never given her respect, never treated her as an equal. He'd been possessive, controlling, and yes, occasionally violent. The slap at the club happened the first time he put his hands on her. There had been two other incidents during their relationship, both times when he'd been drunk, both times followed by extravagant apologies and promises to do better. Promises he'd never kept. Isabella had finally left after the second time, packing her things while he was at work and disappearing without a trace. He'd tried to find her, of course. Hired a private investigator, called all her friends, even showed up at her mother's house in San Diego. But she'd vanished completely, leaving behind only a note that said, "I deserve better. Goodbye, Marcus." He'd been furious at the time. Hurt. How dare she leave him? How dare she judge him when he'd given her so much? Now, trapped in a hotel room in Seoul, Marcus was beginning to understand. She'd found better. Found a man who, despite being a literal criminal, treated her with more respect than Marcus ever had. The irony was suffocating. Night fell. Marcus tried to sleep, but tossed and turned, every sound in the hotel making him jump. Were they coming for him? Would they burst through his door in the middle of the night? But nothing happened. The night passed in anxious silence.